Okay, everyone, welcome to this webinar, To Win an Election, You Have to Run. It's being hosted by Project Elect and the J. Reuben Clark Law Society's committee, Women in Law Committee. I have been so excited for this event. We have some incredible speakers. I just wanted to give a brief introduction to what Project Elect is and what we do. My name's Audrey Perry-Martin. I am one of the founders of Project Elect, and we are an organization that is solely focused on inspiring and influencing and helping Latter-day Saint women run for office. And so this event is exactly what we like to do, and we're so happy to have some new people joining us today. I'm going to put a link to our website and our social media of Project Elect in the chat, so everyone can check us out if they want. I'll probably add it at the end too. And so if you haven't signed up to get our newsletter, please do so. I also wanted to let everyone know that we are launching today a starter pack to running for local office. And it's specifically, this version is for Utah local office, because Utah's municipal elections are this year. They're in the odd years, unlike most other elections. So it's really a perfect time to run for local office if you're in Utah. And the filing period is the first week of June. So it's coming right up. And that's why we're having this today, to hopefully inspire some of you to actually pull and file that paperwork. So I am also putting in the chat our guide on our starter pack, which kind of walks you through. It's a broad overview. It's only a few pages long of the things you need to think about when you're running for office and what you need to do step by step. And so that should be really helpful if you're contemplating it and help you decide to dive right in. And now I'm going to introduce our moderator, Candace Anderson. Candace is the head of the Women Law Committee for J. Reuben Clark Law Society. She's also an elected official in Contra Costa County in California and the County Board of Supervisors. She's had that position since 2012, and she's been on more than one city council. She's been a mayor. She's also an attorney. And so she's really an expert on running for office and has been in the trenches of local campaigns and governments for many years. She's been married for 40 years and she has 6 children and 11 grandchildren. So Candace, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Audrey. And I really have enjoyed getting to know Audrey because I have been in this arena of local government, serving in office for now about 25 years. And so oftentimes, particularly in California, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is a little bit more liberal than a lot of parts of Utah. I'm in Contra Costa County, and it's been challenging finding peers. And really my goal as a woman of faith, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is to help women recognize they have the skill set, they have the knowledge, they have the training, so much to give back to our community. But because we often have large families, because we often are very engaged in church callings, we're often doing some amazing, wonderful, wonderful things, they don't think they have time, or they question whether they're the right person. And I love that Audrey's organization, Project Elect, is help women realize their full potential. Now, as Audrey mentioned, I do serve as the chair of the Women in Law Committee of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society. And while there is the J. Reuben Clark Law School at BYU, which I happen to graduate from, the Law Society is really an organization for all attorneys of faith. It doesn't have to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They can be any organization, any group, individual who really wants to ensure religious liberty, wants to ensure fairness throughout the world. And so we have marvelous organizations and chapters of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society all over the world, in Africa, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Europe, and of course, in North America. And so it's really interesting then to go down to the level of women in law. We have unique opportunities as female attorneys, and we in the Women in Law are really there to help support women, to provide them with information, access to resources, sharing of information of how we can really help women who are attorneys fulfill their potential, and recognizing that a lot of us, myself included, might have put our career as attorneys on hold while we raised our children, and we need to re-enter the workforce. Many attorneys today, female attorneys, are juggling being a mom currently while having a career. And how does that work? Finding those work-life balances. And how do we continue where sometimes women they're not always treated exactly the same as their male counterparts, whether it be in wages, whether it be in how people discuss issues with them, how things happen in a courthouse. We always address those too. And also we're now continuing to look at things through the lens of fairness, of diversity, of how do we really build up one another. And so as the chair of Women in Law, we have focused on some great topics, but one of my favorites really is let's get more women involved in government, in running for office, recognizing their potential. And so that's really what we're here about today, and why I was just so delighted to partner with Project Elect. So let me tell you a little bit about our speakers today. I'm delighted to hear each of them speak. We've got Cecilee Price-Huish, and who is Huish? I'm a guess. Am I saying it correct? I want to say it correctly. Is it Huish?
It's really close. Yeah, that's it. Huish.
Huish. Okay, Cecilee Price-Huish, and she's an attorney who has experience in family law, commercial and real estate, in the nonprofit sector as well. And she currently serves on the Bountiful City Council, the Bountiful Planning Commission, and the board of the Bountiful Davis Art Center. And she and her husband, Steve, moved to Bountiful back in 2000, where they have raised their 5 children. And for over 2 decades, Cecilee has been an active member of the community, serving also on the Bountiful Parks and Trails Committee, founding the Davis County Community Coalition, a grassroots advocacy organization. And she's done a lot of pro bono, free legal work for victims of domestic violence and individuals experiencing homelessness. Additionally, Cecilee has served both youth, women, and a board member of multiple organizations that really are focused on philanthropy, Indigenous women, and education, healthcare, and also as a member of the Board of Trustees at Lakeview Hospital, as well as serving for 21 consecutive years on the Community Council and PTA boards for 4 Bountiful schools her children attended. You sound like me, Cecilee. Sometime we need to meet and share all of these fun things you've been working on. She grew up in Provo, earned her BA in BYU in communications, and she's working currently on a master's of public policy at the U. And in her free time, she loves to hike, paint, garden, travel, and explore the amazing state of Utah. And so I'm excited to hear from Cecilee. Our next speaker will be LeMone. And did I say that correct, Sid? Okay, thank you. She is a lifelong Pleasant Grove resident, proud to call that community her home, and she absolutely loves local schools and the education she received at Grove Crest Elementary, Pleasant Grove Junior High, and Pleasant Grove High School. Those schools really shaped who she is. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in business management from Utah Valley University, and then was employed as a financial aid advisor at UVU. And in that position, she really gained an appreciation for helping students to reach their higher educational goals. Her love for education inspired her to become involved with her children's schools, and she continues to serve there. She and her husband are raising their 3 boys in the hopes that one day they will choose Pleasant Grove as their home. And she has served on the Pleasant Grove City Council for over 11 years. So delighted to have her share her experience. And then finally, we've got Shaunte Ruiz Zundel, and she is a graduate of the University of Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, and and also of the J. Rubin Park Law School. And she got her Juris Doctorate degree, her law degree, back in 2016. And after graduation, she worked briefly for the FBI. And then she went on to do some amazing work as guardian ad litem in the 4th District of Utah. And for those of you not familiar, a guardian ad litem is there to represent children and help them be protected, have their rights articulated. And as a guardian ad litem, she represented the interest of abused and neglected children. And in 2020, she left that office to really focus on something that's important to her, being a mom of 2 young children. And Shaunte is a graduate, as we mentioned, of the University of Tucson in Arizona, and she really has become more and more involved in focusing on local government. And so in 2021, she decided to run for the Orem City Council, got through the primary election, and then after learning from her election bid, she became more involved in local politics, including campaigning for a ballot measure. So we are just so happy to have these three women today with us, sharing their experience in serving in local government, running for office. And we are going to have each of them provide their insights. So Cecilee, why don't we start with you, and then we'll follow that with Sid and then Shaunte, and then we will have an opportunity for questions, and they're going to be moderated by a member of our Women in Law Committee, who name is Carly Madsen. Carly has helped us coordinate all of this. You can, as you hear our speakers speak, feel free to just in the chat, go ahead and type in a question. Carly's going to be going ahead and capturing those as we go through it. And then we will certainly have an opportunity for you just to ask questions along the way. So Cecilee, let's have you start out. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you can inspire these women today.
Well, thank you so much for that, and for everyone for being here. And I really appreciate the opportunity of being invited. I will say that I started following on social media Project Women Elect, and I think I'm saying Project Elect Women on social media when I was running. And I was like, I'm going to need all the good mojo I can get. And I don't know if any of the rest of you have run for office before, or if you're thinking about it, but I'm just going to tell a tiny story. So I've been in office now for a year and a half. And so almost exactly 2 years ago, my husband, on my bucket list was to hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim. And so we set out on this adventure, and it was kind of there was a heat wave happening in 2021 at the beginning of June, but it was the time that we had scheduled to do it. And so we trained for it, and it's a 26-mile just slog all the way down, then all the way back up. And when we got down to the bottom at a place called Phantom Ranch, it was, I think, 124 degrees at Phantom Ranch, and we had to get back out of that canyon. And I thought, if I sit here for longer than 30 minutes, I'm going to just lay down and never get back up. And because it was so hot and so hard. So that physically was the most difficult thing I had ever done. And when I'm like just crawling out of the canyon, 12 hours after starting, actually, that's a lie. It was more like 14 hours, crawling out on the South Rim. I was like, you know what? That was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm going to run for city council. I think if I can do this, I can run for city council. Because it was something that I thought about many times, but I just thought, oh, it really doesn't sound like a ton of fun to run for office. It sounded like it would be interesting and fun to be in office, but running is hard. So surviving the Grand Canyon really gave me that added boost of confidence. Like, you know what? After that, I can do anything. So I literally, the next day when we got back, I went down to the city hall, put in my application, and boom, there it was. But then I literally had no idea what to do. And I guess a few things, my thoughts are going to be a tiny bit disjointed. I'm going to try and not take more than my time. I'm not going to take more than my time, but I've been thinking a lot about this over the last few days. And I had thought about running so many times before I actually went down, paid my $20, put my name on the list. And why did I not run until 2021? Well, one of the reasons was I do think in your own life when the time is right for you, right? You kind of have that, you feel that urge, that desire, that, something is pushing you forward. Like, this is now the time. But if you're kind of thinking, I really want to do it, and you're having those feelings, but you're not doing it because you think it's going to be scary, then maybe now is the time for you, even though you think it's going to be scary, because it is scary and it is hard. I don't know. I guess something that I think has said a lot, but I think it bears repeating, is when you're considering running for political office, you do not need anyone's permission. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need their invitation to the table, and you don't need anyone's validation. And I'm going to tell you that if, like, just don't wait for those things. Go for it. If you have those little flickers percolating, like, you know what, I think I could make a difference, or I'm really passionate about this particular issue, or you just think this is something I've kind of dreamed of. Don't wait for any of those things. Just go for it. There will be naysayers, and there will be people who will say to you, why are you running? What do you think you can offer? And I think that can immediately kind of undermine or kind of wash out some of your foundation if you let it. And I think before you even tell people, you've got to kind of still yourself, do that look in the mirror, power pose, and just say, I'm going to nip the naysayers in the bud, and I'm not going to give them a seat at my mental table because I've decided to go for this. I know that I can be a contributor. I know I have something to offer, and I can be a positive influence in my community. And then I would say after that, then you decide who you want at your table. And I had an initial campaign event where I invited all of my closest friends, family members to my house. And I'm not sure. I'm sure I didn't do everything right. In fact, I know I didn't, because I did not know what I was doing. I was just like, wow, what do I do now? Here I go. And there are going to be a lot of people who give you advice about what to do. But I would say invite everybody to your party who you trust, who you think could help you in this process. Ask for help, ask for advice from people who you know who've done this before. And anyone who says, hey, you're running, how can I help you? Don't just put them on a back burner. Think of something immediately they can do. Oh, do you want to place 10 yard signs? Would you call everybody you know? Would you do social media posts for me? Can I put you on my endorsement list? Would you go do a honk and wave? Those are really kind of fun, also kind of embarrassing, but honest to goodness, I did like 12 of those, and I invited everybody who I knew. And I was like, you take that big corner, I'll take this big corner, and we take the 3 main off ramps from the I-15 leading into Bountiful from 5 to 6 o'clock, the busiest time of the night, holding up our signs. I mean, and I will say, people were way nicer than you think they're going to be. You think people might like yell mean things out of their cars. They're honking. They're like, wow, go you, even though they didn't know me. So I'd say, ask everyone you know for help who you think would be willing, and even those who you don't think might be willing. I remember I asked who is now one of my colleagues for advice, and she had just told me, Cecilee, you just need to be authentic. It's too late in your life to go try and reinvent yourself. And that was probably true. I am who I am, and you all are who you are, and people know you for who you are. So be authentic to who you are, the core of who you are as a person. This is silly, but somebody who was trying to give me some advice said, oh, you have a hyphenated last name. That is not going to go in Bountiful. Maybe you could change your name. And I was like, wow, I've had this name for 30 years. I'm not changing my name. And there were like other funny things, like wear certain clothes, always wear a suit jacket or, a suit coat. And I was like, it's just not me. That's not me. I'm wearing pink today. I'm like, be authentic to who you are. Don't change your political party or whatever it is. Be who you are. Make your home a sanctuary, because if you are out there running, I think people can be mean. And I would just say, prepare yourself for that, because I really could not believe. I I just feel like I have to say this. People can be really mean and said horrible things about me. Horrible, horrible things about me. Horrible things about my family. Horrible, just it was kind of shocking, and not lots of people, but enough that it kind of hurt. And I had to really decide my home is going to be a sanctuary. And okay, I see I've taken 10 minutes. I'm going to say a couple, just two more things really quick. One, a lot of people don't want to do the things that are least fun about campaigning, like going door to door or doing those things like the honk and waves or going and doing meet the candidate events. And I would say, do all of those things. Go door to door. Go door to door to, and I can guarantee I knocked on more doors than anybody else I was running against. I know I did. And whenever I started to feel bummed out because another weird rumor about me was flying around town, I was like, I'm hitting the pavement and I'm going to go door to door, because when you're talking to people in your community, that's the very best thing. Oh my gosh, it's the very, very best thing. So don't shy away from that, because when you're talking to someone, they're going to say, you know what's super important to me? This thing, that thing, or the other thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, let's talk about that. And you have the coolest conversations. And so don't be too proud to do any of these things or the scary things. Final 30 seconds, come up with your branding, stick with it, go hard on your branding. Mine was hearts. I did big, all of my stuff had Cecilee in the biggest letters, Price-Huish way small because that's trickier, and big giant heart over the letter I. And my thing was Cecilee loves Bountiful. Everything had those hearts, everything had, and everything I did was, this is why I love Bountiful. This is my love for Bountiful will be manifest in these ways. I also did a big campaign called Vibrant Bountiful, where everything was hashtagged with that. And so I would say just do that too. That's all. I've taken way too, I've gone way over.
No, thank you so much, Cecilee. And your comments, she's left us with some amazing things. I loved your comment that you have to go outside your comfort zone to do this. It's not easy. I always tell people I had to get hit over the head to really move forward because it is intimidating. Don't wait for permission. I cannot stand when I hear someone say, oh, it's not your turn yet. You just wait your turn and then you can run. Don't wait for that. Thick skins, absolutely. And I've never heard the comment, I love it. Don't give the naysayer a seat at your mental table. I mean, absolutely. You want to keep that out. You decide. And honk and waves, I grew up in Hawaii. We do them in Hawaii. We don't do them in Contra Costa County, but I wish we did. So I'm glad you did that. And then the authenticity. I love that. So now we get to hear from Sid to share your story. Thank you so much. And delighted to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, so I got started in I'm up for re-election this year, as I don't know if all of you ladies are as well, but I'm up for re-election this year, and this will be my 4th time running. I've run for city council 3 times and for mayor once. We've never had a female mayor here in Pleasant Grove. It's been 175 years. So our mayor though is not up for 2 more years. So we'll see, but I've been only one of 2 women that has ever ran for mayor. So we'll see what the future holds as far as me running again for mayor. But as far as city council, I really got started first serving in my kids' PTA. My mom was always really involved in my children and in my life in the PTA, even though she worked full time. She was always a room mom and at class parties. And I remember her being in the school. And so I knew I wanted to do that when my kids were at that age. And so when my oldest was in kindergarten, I just jumped in and got involved and served in different positions. And I remember when I was PTA president one year, I got the school, with the help of other parents, a $20,000 electronic marquee. And that was the highlight of my existence as a mom at that point, was getting this electronic marquee to help get the word out to parents and students about what was going on at the school. And we did a lot of other things that year as well. And I tried to get more women involved. And I would hear often from women, you know, and this is, we're talking PTA, not even city council. When I asked them about PTA, they would say, I don't see myself as a leader. I don't think I could do it. I need to ask my husband. There were just a lot of different reasons as to why they weren't able to be involved. And a lot of it just was, I don't think they have the confidence to do it. I think that they would be able to, but they just thought themselves they didn't have the confidence. And, you know, as you were saying earlier, there's just a time and a season for different things, and you have to know when it's right for you. But I met some of my most dearest friends through the PTA and getting them involved, and some have been involved now for 10 plus years. And I think a lot of times all they have to do is be asked. A lot of times they're not going to volunteer or be involved on their own, whether it's at a city level or at the school, whatever it is, but they need to be asked. And once they're asked, they feel wanted and validated and will jump in and be involved. So I really made it a point to ask people specifically to be involved, not just who wants to volunteer and hope that people sign up, because I generally found that wasn't going to happen. So after serving as PTA president and being involved for a couple of years, I thought if I can make a difference at this level, maybe I can make a difference at the community level. And so I ran for city council. And at that time, I think I was the youngest council member to ever run. And then I had 3 little kids that I was pushing a stroller, going door to door. So I know, and I love going door to door. It's one of my favorite things. I think I've knocked more doors than any other candidates. I lost like 10 pounds because we live on a lot of hills. When I was running, and I mean, hoofing it up and down those hills and in the heat of the day, and I was knocking doors. And again, I met some of my very dearest friends knocking on doors and having a conversation, and then becoming involved with the city, you know, or community later on. So that's another way I met and got people involved. But I also, when I won, it was the first time in history that the women had outnumbered the men on the council. We were 3 women to 2 men. And I'm not a feminist by any means. I don't believe that you should get it just because you're a woman, but anytime you can make history like that and, you know, earn your position, I'm all for that. So it was a really, you know, historical time in Pleasant Grove that for the first time ever, women had outnumbered the men on the council. Now we're back to 2 women and 3 men. So it kind of ebbs and flows, but it's definitely been a rewarding and challenging experience. There was a dark time, as I call it, on city council when we had some very controversial issues going on. And it was really hard mentally to, you know, read things about myself or the city online and try to refute those. And I was spending a lot of my time doing that. Finally, I decided I can't keep spending my time focusing on the small percentage of people that want me to fail or don't want to help me make the city better. I need to focus my time on the people that want to help me make it better. And once I did that, it changed my entire outlook on serving and the process. And so that's helped me a lot. And I really don't even pay attention to those people anymore because it's such a small minority, but sometimes those loudest voices are what sticks in our head and we can't get that out. And so out of the 10 people that wanted to help me, I would focus on the one that was just very, very negative. And it really didn't do me any favors for a long time. And it took me a while to figure out how to overcome that. And then once I did, I just never looked back and have been able to bring people on and help serve. And it's just been a much better experience. But even this election, I don't know who else will run. I don't even know if we have any people signed up to run at this point. I don't believe we do. And so you can kind of take it as no news is good news. People think we're doing a good job and don't want to get involved. But it's also disappointing that we don't have more people out of almost 42,000 that want to be involved and serve. And so right now I'm planning on running again and putting my name in. I love to campaign, even though it is scary. I love to do debates. I love to go door to door. I love all of that process. And I'm happy to share that with anyone who wants to do, and I have in the past. I'll give them resources and information because it is kind of scary once you jump in and you don't know where to go from there. You sign up and you write your name on the paper and you pay your fee, and then it's like, now what? So if I can help anyone that I believe would be a good candidate for our city, then I will definitely help them and give them the resources because it has been a really good experience. And I'll continue to run and serve as long as I can make a difference. And I know that sounds really cliche, but that is the truth. If there comes a time when I don't feel like my services can be rendered anymore, or that I'm not making a positive difference in the community, or I have other things to do in my life with the time, rather than be on city council, then I will definitely step away. But until then, I do feel like a female voice needs to be heard on the council, and also a younger voice, because right now we have older people on the council, and they just have a different, and I love having the different demographics, but they definitely have a different view than I do of what needs to happen in the city. And so we need all these different people and demographics and ages and men and women involved. And so as long as I can represent, women and a little bit younger demographic in our community, then I'll continue to run. But it is disappointing when we don't have people signing up. And I never want anyone, money, that is hard for me when people don't have the money to run, that would hold someone back. So I want to give people resources and help them be able to run, without having a lot of money, because that's disappointing when someone chooses not to do that for that reason. But I also understand, because it can be thousands of dollars to run. You just have to get creative and knock those doors and do things that don't cost as much money. But it is possible, and I want to help anyone, especially women, to be more involved. So.
Thank you. No, you brought up some wonderful points as well, Sid. I love that you are there to break the status quo and really be one of the earliest women to be on your city council and run for mayor. And not, even if you don't win, still you are out there. And absolutely, we want women in mayoral positions as well. I loved also your point about you got involved in the community where you had passion, your PTA. Similarly, with my 6 kids, I was on every school's PTA board and ledge committee. And it's not only just you're giving back, but you are building grassroots networks that are so helpful when you choose to run. Those have always been some of my biggest supporters, are the women who I serve side by side with on PTA boards and committees. They knew they could trust me. I'm obviously California, we're not an LDS community. And so there are a lot of misconceptions about us. And I know as Utah changes too considerably, you will have sort of that them and us. And it's helpful to have people inside the church, outside the church, who will say, hey, she's a fair-minded, good person who really isn't going to be discriminating on you based upon your religion, or more importantly, you get this, well, does Salt Lake tell you how to vote? I've had that question in California as well. I agree, women do provide such a different perspective. When I am on a 3-member, 3 out of 5 women board, it changes the dynamics, how we communicate, and I have complete respect for my male colleagues, but that's just sort of the way it is. And I also love that you found a way to just block out the negative blogs and news. And when you're running for election, when someone starts attacking you, as I've had happen as well, sometimes it's good to have a trusted friend, a spouse. Even I had my adult son who was in marketing be the one who was reading the blogs. He would respond accordingly. But it wasn't me having to hear those awful comments that really weren't true, but just there because someone wanted to make those. And I love the quote, and I believe it was President Hinckley, unless it was Elder Faust, who said it's not the loudest voice, but the voice of reason that's going to make a difference. And that happens in our boardrooms, in our city council rooms, as well as in media as well. And then finally, I love that you're a mentor. And that is such an important role. And I'm sure that Cecilee, you're the same way. I want to get other people into office, both men or women, good people into office. And so throughout my whole career as an elected official, I have met for anyone, here they want to meet for coffee. I say, I'll meet you for hot chocolate. And so we, and I just sit down and I sort of walk them through a basic campaign boot camp of what they can do to run an inexpensive campaign, whether or not our values are entirely aligned. I develop really positive relationships with people who will be my colleagues, who, when they get elected, we work together on issues. And then finally, funding, always an issue. Donate to people, but there are ways. I used to run my city council races on about $12,000 in Danville. We're about 43,000 people. Running for county, I had to raise 10 times that amount, but funding it's hard to ask people for money. So anyway, thank you so much for your comments. Now, Shaunte, we've got you to share your experience.
Thank you, Candace. I feel like part of why I'm here is to let you know that you can run and you can lose, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't run. It was really important for me to run for city council, my city's city council, because while I'm originally from Arizona, Utah has become my home and I'm invested. My children are growing and learning here. And I was seeing things in a direction that I didn't like. So if I don't like it, I have to step up. And it was when I was in law school, there's a Utah, he's now retired, a Utah Supreme Court Justice, Justice Jimenez. He came and he talked to us about needing representation. And he talked about the need for more women, the need for more ethnic minorities. But he said, the only way to get that, achieve that, it's not through just letting someone in because of that. And that's very rarely happens. It's about people stepping up to the plate. If you don't run, you won't have representation. In my election bid, there was 3 women and about 12 candidates. And one woman won, and actually all 3 of the women made it through the primary. But statistically, if we're not putting our names out there, we're not going to get that representation. Right now, Utah has 26% of the legislation is female, and when the time I was running, only 1 out of 7 were female in my hometown. And so in order to achieve that goal, we have to start running. We have to get our friends to run, the women we know to run, because to achieve that true representation of the population, we have to step up. And it's a scary thing to do. I know that I've kind of always suffered from something, imposter syndrome, thinking I'm not actually capable of doing this. I never realized it until I was applying for college, and I thought, I'm not going to get in. I'm first generation. I'm poor. I'm not as smart. But then when I was in college, I got a recruiter job, and I realized I was more than qualified to go to my state college. I don't know what I was thinking. And it's a theme in my life. In law school, I thought I was a fraud. I'm not smart enough. There's so many people that are better than me. But then after I graduated, I realized, no, I am very qualified and I contribute a lot. And, when I was applying for the FBI, I thought, I'm not going to make it past the screening. And I remember vividly, I got asked they're trying to see if you qualify for top secret security. And so they asked me if there was any academic cheating. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done for. And I told them I cheated on my first grade spelling test. They laughed at me as I see that's not what they meant. I did get top secret security clearance. I was trustworthy. But the point is, so many of us, women are more likely to have imposter syndrome than men. An incompetent man is more, they've said in studies, incompetent men are more likely to believe that they can do something than competent women are likely to believe that they can do the same thing. It's really quite sad. And so my biggest thing is we are not imposters as women. We have different things to contribute. We are not all the same. We should not be homogenous. But I believe, I don't know every woman on this, but I believe probably every woman is more than qualified in a different way. And we don't need to be qualified in the same way. How I chose to run, it was, I got the little email that said, we're having the city council run. And I was like, oh, okay. And I hemmed and hawed for a couple of days. And then I registered on the very, very last day. It's May 24th. If I could go back in time, even just like deciding on May 24th to run, that would have been a huge difference. My husband, he is what I like to call an election nerd. This man, while we were dating, he told me that his Super Bowl was presidential debates. And he loves campaigns. He loves watching the debates. He loves watching C-SPAN and filibusters. Like, he's just the biggest nerd in the world when it comes to elections. And so I was very fortunate to have him be so supportive, because he could have told me, sweetheart, you're too late in the game. And he would have been not necessarily completely inaccurate, but instead he was supportive. Instead, he put on our bootstraps with me, and he worked so hard and tirelessly. But he was kind of like in the movie, The Princess Bride, when they go to see Miracle Max, and he tells Fezzik, you are the brute squad. My husband was the brute squad. So I would definitely encourage everyone to get a team of people. Don't think you can do it all. Don't think that the little group that you have of just you and whatever, one or two close friends. No, you need a team. Some important roles, a social media campaigning is now so important. Getting designs of signs as quickly as possible to try and get them, print out a sample before I had printed out like a couple, like I had different kinds of signs because I was going the cheap route because we didn't have a lot of money. And maybe if I printed out a sample and paid a little extra for one, that would have been a good idea. Have people to help you find locations, because there's always rules about where you can put signs, where you can't put signs, be cognizant of that. Get someone who can design your website right away, and handouts and mailers, or if you can't do mailers because you're so poor, doorknobs. And I love knocking. I'm glad Cecilee and Sid talk about their experience of knocking, because that really was the best. I had a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old at the time when I started my election, and they just came with me, and it's really great exercise. I agree with Sid on that. But it was really nice doing that with my girls. My favorite part of my election was when I was doing a meet the candidate night, and afterwards my 2-year-old at the time came up to me and said, "Mommy, I'm going to do that one day." And it's just, that was important. I know some women, they say they want to wait till their kids are grown. No. I mean, if that's best for you, you have to decide what's best for you, but don't think that you're going to be taking away from them, because you're actually, I feel, maybe enriching them, seeing their mother do something incredible and that they can do too. I love the family proclamation. It says, "Parents have a sacred duty to rear their children in love and righteousness, to provide for their physical and spiritual needs, and teach them to love and serve one another. Observe the commandments of God, and be law-abiding citizens wherever they live." Being a part of local government is also attending to the physical needs of your children. You need to make sure that they live in a city or county, or however, a state that values their education, that values the libraries, the parks, their safety. And also, being citizens isn't mean just not getting into trouble, just being a part of a community. It means engaging in it. And so I feel like by becoming involved, by running, you are fulfilling part of your God's purpose for you. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I want to end there, but I do want to say something very important. One thing I wish I would have done better is asking all of my friends and family for campaign contributions. And by that, I mean, I would have wished I would approach them saying, "Mom, cousin, auntie, can I practice asking people for money?" So that way I'm not putting my relationship of trust in danger or in an awkward position, but just asking them to let me practice, because also your family's probably going to give you a little bit. If I had asked my grandpa earlier, or because he didn't find out till later, but he gave me a couple $100. Like, I wish I'd known sooner. I was like, I wish I had talked to you sooner, Grandpa. I'm sorry. But money is hard, but it is also important. So I really appreciate you all for coming in, for the invitation from Project Elect. It's a great organization.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Shaunte. I love that you're sharing the experience of running and losing, and that it really is okay. And I think it's so important you step up when you don't like what is happening. And even if you don't win your first campaign, you are first, of course, getting great name recognition for a subsequent campaign that's going to come forward. I know so many people who lost their first elections. It just happens. But also, you've raised issues that are important to you, and you've required the other candidates to respond to those issues. And so even if you don't win, those are going to be some of the things that public policy issues that will have to be addressed. I loved your sharing with imposter syndrome. I have horrible imposter syndrome, and I cannot tell you how many times when I was running for county supervisor, city council races didn't bother me because they were much simpler, where I would wake up in the middle of the night and just say, what am I doing? This is the dumbest thing in the world. How can I possibly think I could win against this opponent, etc.? And so I wish I could say it goes away after a while. I still sometimes will sit on a dais and think, am I just an idiot? Do I really know what I'm doing up here? So I think it's acknowledging it. And what's helped me is sharing it with someone I really trust, just saying, I'm not feeling brilliant today. And they just look at me usually and say, you have got to be kidding. And they share with me, they give me that feedback I need, that no, I'm really not an imposter. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I love that you shared the support of your husband, because I truly encourage anyone who is going to run for office, you really want that buy-in support from your family. And I'm not saying you need to go to your husband asking for permission, but having that support that this is what we are going to be doing together is critical, because it is time consuming, not just when you're running, but once you're in office. And it's not even just your city council or county board of supervisors meetings that I attend. It's the 29 boards and committees I serve on, besides serving on the board of supervisors, and the community events that I need to go to every weekend that really do take very much over our family calendar. And I loved you sharing about getting your children involved, and your daughter's response that she wants to do that someday. When I was appointed, because my first city council was in Santa Clara County, tail end of Silicon Valley, I was appointed to a Morgan Hill City Council when my children, I only had 4 of the 6 at the time, but they were ages 2, 4, 6, and 8. And I cannot tell you how many people said, what are you doing? Why would you be on a city council when you have children that young? And it was very clear for me, that was where I was supposed to be. But when I could bring these 4 cute little children to the Spruce Up the Park days, and they could help trim trees and bushes and paint equipment and do things, they became very much a part of the community. And when my second son applied to law school, he reflected back on how when he was a little boy, he really felt a part of the community and how important it was to give back. So I love that. Yeah, you need a team. I love that. You need as many people on your team as you can. You keep it organized and you give people roles. I love that as well. And also, I think your perspective that you are fulfilling a higher purpose by being involved is so true. And it's something I have felt throughout my entire political career. Even at one point having at a dedication of the Oakland Temple, a general authority coming up to me after I spoke saying, as I heard you speak, it was clear to me that you have been called to what you are doing, just as I was called to be a general authority. And it really, for me, reinforced I'm where I'm supposed to be right now, even though it's not the traditional role that someone might expect a woman of our faith to be. So anyway, thank you so much. All 3 of you just shared so many fabulous things. And so I'm going to just turn it over to Carly, because she's going to moderate our questions for the next 10 minutes, the remainder of this event.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone, that was really good. I feel very excited and inspired, and I'm sure that others on this call do too. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand or just start talking. That's fine too. I was going to start by asking one that we prepared earlier, and every one of the 3, or you can just choose one. I'm wondering, did you have any experiences while running for office that kind of affirmed to you that what you were doing was consistent with your divine potential? Because that's kind of the theme of today, is that like this can be part of God's plan or path for you if you want it to be. And I'm wondering, did you ever question that what you were doing was the right thing?
Sid, you're on mute.
There we go. Not to get too personal, but because we're, talking about LDS women, in my patriarchal blessing does say specifically that I will serve in the community and school. So it gets very, very specific for me. So when I look back and read that into serving in my term, that confirmed to me that I was where I was supposed to be and I was on the right path. And just as I've come in contact with different people and women throughout the years as I've served, I just have been able to help them get into a leadership position. And I know that we're supposed to serve in these different roles. It just takes someone to have that prompting, or someone to have that inspiration, or feel and help someone get to that. And that's what we're all trying to do, is help each other and kind of be that that person to help others get to where they need to go. So that was, like I said, something personal for me that confirmed that I was on the right path. I need to be doing what I should at that time in that role.
Thank you for sharing that. There is another one on here. Some of these are like brass tactics, and I think that's really nice. Like, it's nice to have someone kind of walk you through like the emotional side of everything that you're doing, and someone also to just give you like the names and the numbers of everything that you need to do. So we got a question from Jennifer who asked, what are some of the best ways to fundraise? How do you go about financing a campaign? That might be like a longer question than we can answer right here, but if someone wants to take a stab.
I'll say this is something that I learned along the way, how to, I was not really sure how much this would cost. And I think maybe getting getting some information from people who have run in your jurisdiction, in your locality, about what have you spent. And if people aren't forthcoming, just go back and look. It's all in the public record. Go back and look at the last election or the last few election cycles and see how much are people spending approximately, and then use that as a guide. I think determine early on how much you're willing to put in, and then maybe set that as a limit, because that can become, I remember at the point in my campaign where I was like, I'm not spending one more dollar, like not one more dollar. And so then from there on out, everything had to be like really much more creative. Maybe start your campaign in that way. Start your campaign feeling a little bit more creative, a little bit more financially frenzied. But my advice is ask literally everybody you know, because some people, you can get this weird feeling like people might not think that I need a donation for my campaign. They might look at me and say, you have a house and a car and, you know, you're choosing this, but put it on everything, like front and center, the donation button, the donation page, put it in your social media. You're going to put out, if you're running, those first few announcements, like I'm running for office, and people are going to get really jazzed about that. And then just say, please donate to my campaign. I just think we feel uncomfortable. As much as we have that imposter syndrome, I think we feel even way more uncomfortable asking people for money. And I just think I loved what you said, Shaunte, about practicing on your family. And I got weird donations from people I had not heard of from a long time. They saw my social media posts, getting a check here or there. I was like, wow, I should have been more forthcoming. I would really love it if you would donate to my campaign. This is what I'm going to spend it on. I'm going to buy yard signs. I'm going to send out flyers. I'm going to, you know, whatever it is. Just be bold. Just ask.
Because the worst they're going to say is no.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, they could give you 100. I had one man, I knocked on his door and I was kind of friends with his wife, and he walked me into the setting, handed me $600 cash. Like, you never know how much they want to give, how much they can give. So, but if you don't ask, that doesn't give them the opportunity to help you. So just ask. The worst they're going to say is no, or they might give you $10, and that $10 can go by your sign. So just ask.
Yeah. And write those personal thank you letters or notes to everyone who gives you anything.
Yeah.
Anything, time, money, emotional support.
Well, and I'm just going to jump in too, because I'm very involved too with campaign finance laws. So make sure you know what your campaign finance laws, like when you said you got $600 cash, I thought, oh my goodness, in California, you can't take cash unless you have all the right information from that person, et cetera. So make sure you do that as well. But absolutely. And I love the thank you notes.
Yes.
Those
make sure you disclose and report, because that can be that we've had people that have not, and it's caused a lot of issues. So make sure you track everything that comes in, for sure.
Absolutely.
I like that. And I also like thinking of it as you're giving people an opportunity to serve. I haven't run for office yet, and I have given money to people. I don't have a lot of money. I'm in school, but every person who's asked me for a contribution, like I'm like really excited to give them $20, because it makes me feel like I'm furthering this like greater cause that I really believe in. Okay, so Jen asked, how do you manage running for office or political office with your family life?
You know, I like this one, and I would say get your family involved with you. Before you even decide to run, I think you do definitely need the support of your spouse. If it's not a good time in your life to run, there's going to be plenty of years to do it. But if it is a good time, make sure your whole family is on board, because they will be involved with you, not just campaigning, but while you're serving in office. They're going to be, my family is in the parade every year. They're going to events with me. They're participating. You know, I want them there with me. I don't want it to be just my thing and then they're off to the side. I really want them involved. So I would talk to them about the time commitment that you're going to have away from the home, but also how they can be involved as well, and get them excited about it. I have 3 boys, and when I went campaigning, they would go door to door with me. They were passing out flyers. They were wearing my t-shirt. So I really got them involved. Now my son is serving on student council, and I want them to see what it takes to be involved in your community. So I would get them involved from day one, but definitely have the conversation to let them know and have an idea about the time commitment. If you're going to be away, you know, 2 nights a month for your meetings or whatever that entails, lay that all out so it's no surprise to them, because it does take you away from your family for different, you know, responsibilities and meetings, and you don't want to, you know, shy away from that. But see how they can get involved with you. That's what I would say.
That's great. We're running out of time, but I really like this last question from Tracy. What can we do as women of our faith, or women in general? How can we support each other in this effort to run for office?
I'm going to just say, anytime anyone says that they're going to do anything, you say, how can I help you? And, or if they say, well, I'll think of anything, you're going to have an idea like, oh, maybe I could help babysit that kid, that person's kids while they go to some meetings. Or maybe I could, I don't know, you're going to have some way that you can think of that you can help that person. And I would say, just offer your help, and maybe even just be a listening ear. Like, wow, this is really cool that you want to do this. And just encourage. I think we need more voices in our lives. All of us here, all of us need more voices saying, you're great. You can do this. I believe in you. And if we can do that for each other, and then the real nitty gritty stuff, like, oh, do you need someone to go to Layton and pick up your signs? I'll do that. I've got a couple hours, you know, whatever. I just think about, I'm going to tell this really quickly. A woman who I serve with, she has 4 kids. She had a baby last year. She's pregnant again. She's having a baby in October. She's running again, and she's an excellent council member. She's smart, and she brings this perspective that Shaunte was talking about. She's younger. She has these very young, vibrant family. And I know that so many people in her community, in her ward, in her neighborhood are constantly helping her, carpooling her kids, and her village of Latter-day Saint women are really coming in to bear to help her successfully fulfill this job. And that I think she feels very strongly is a calling for her at this time. And her husband is also the bishop. So, I mean, I just think I can hardly think of a more busy little family than hers. And there she is going for it. And it's amazing. I love seeing it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I love those final remarks, Cecilee. I know in my career, I could not have done it without my village of LDS women. And my husband was bishop when I was on a council with 6 children, you know, ranging in age from 5 to 18. And yeah, it was a busy time, but thank you there are so many ways we can support one another. And especially if someone's not quite ready to run for office, there's so much they can do to help. So just, thank you all for being here. I really thank Project Elect for bringing us all together. And they do have this great starter pack that is going to be emailed out, I believe, to everyone, if that's correct, Audrey, that will be just an additional resource. And I think all of us here today are always happy to speak to anyone who's thinking of running. I certainly am. And I know we want to mentor, encourage more women to run for office, and make sure you also look up on social media and websites for Women in Law, Project Elect. We always are having interesting things happening, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. I put my phone number in the chat. If anybody ever wants to just give me a call, I would be happy to talk about anything. There are so many nuts and bolts and nitty gritty about how you do this, timelines, all those kinds of things. Feel free to call me.
Yeah, I put mine in as well. So yeah, anytime.
And I'm putting mine in right now, and I would be very happy to as well. Even though I wasn't a panelist, I love this work and would be very, very happy to share any ideas, concepts. And Shaunte's got hers in there too. Yay.
But if we're all doing it, I can't not do it. But I do love talking to everybody.
Email. Yay.
Okay, well, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.